Well, welcome back. Happy Christmas. It is that time of year. Now, last time I spoke to you, I was telling you the story of April, the king of the Nene Valley, and my tracking it down and eventually catching it on a floater, which was a major thing for me. I was well happy about that. And it was nice to sort of finish off a campaign, a project in a spectacular way like that. But right next door to the car park lake at Irchester is the big lake. And the big lake was somewhere that I'd wanted to fish, ever since I got a ticket for the complex. It's one ticket for the 4 lakes that are there. I'd had a little go on the big lake, but I'd had a lot of looking at it, and a lot of, because the car park's right next door. So most days I'd have a little look and think, I'll be on there soon. As soon as I catch April, that's my next venue. So with April in the bag, obviously my vision went towards there. But it's never busy up there. It's a lovely little private syndicate. It's beautiful. But its busiest time is pre-spawning. And I knew that they were sort of due to spawn. I could tell, the weather was warming up. It wasn't going to be long. I didn't want to start on there with other anglers, then finish and then leave it over spawning and then return on there. So I dotted about a little bit. I think I went up to the wall pack with Nick just for some socials. I've got another lake up in the Cold Valley, which I've done a little bit on here and there, waiting for them to spawn, and didn't have to wait long. It was a strange year for spawning. They started spawning very early on a lot of lakes and then stopped and started again. It was up and down with the weather. But anyway, the spawning got out of the way and the lake stayed shut for, let's say, a couple of weeks, just to give them time to rest and what have you. Now, there was a thing this year on a few lakes with a sort of a supplementary feeding. So lake owners were feeding lakes. It just so happened that it was on a few of the lakes I was fishing. They did it on the Woolpack and they did it on Irchie. Feeding the fish with pellet while it was shut to help them recover from spawning. I don't know, whether there was a directive put out amongst fishery owners. It seemed to be popular this particular year. And I wasn't sure about it in my mind. I just couldn't, I wasn't for it, I'll be honest. I thought it wasn't a great idea. I was wrong, as it turns out. But at the time, I was like, I'm not sure about that. I want to fish somewhere that's being baited for free and, the fish are on that area and what have you. So with this in mind, I held back a little bit when the big lake opened, didn't go for a couple of weeks. And then I got a phone call from a mate or whatever that on the car park lake, which had also been supplementary baited, someone had a big hit, like a real big hit, because it's a hard lake, turned it over, basically, fishing in the area where the supplementary baiting had happened. And I thought, I don't know about this. Maybe they are visiting it, feeding on it a lot more than I thought they would be. I thought the lakes would be overbaited. I didn't take into consideration how much food they actually want after spawning. So I thought, I'll give it a go. I'll go to the big lake and I'll find out where the baitings happened. And there was 2 areas that had been baited, one of which was on quite a large feature, a big plateau out, sort of 60 yards out one end of the lake, and it's got a huge weed bed around the back of it. So naturally it was a good area anyway. And it had been baited. It hadn't been baited for a few weeks, but it was baited while the lake was shut, so the fish had got used to visiting it and feeding there. So I went into this area, one of the baited areas, and it was a beautiful plateau, great big weed bed around the back of it. And the fish would sit in the weed for a while and then come out, generally in the heat of the day, onto the plateau, feed, drop back into the weed. It was a perfect, absolutely perfect scenario. Like I say, it had been baited in the past. They were used to coming there to feed. So I went in quite heavy, seeing as, first trip down, I didn't really know an awful lot about the lake, didn't know a lot about the fish and the way they fed, but I thought I'd put in quite a lot of particle, chop boilie and what have you, onto this area where they're used to finding food and just see what happened. First trip down, it was a beautiful, beautiful swim I was in. Had a massive, great big weeping willow that leant right over one side of the swim and you could tuck yourself in underneath it. It was a very, very pretty sort of place to fish. Anyway, I sat up in there, got the rods out, And within, I don't know, a couple of hours, I had my first bite. And I thought, this is the one. And obviously, I've got it right. I could see fish out there tenting in the weed, and I could see them creasing, coming out, going over the plateau, the odd little puff of bubbles coming up. So it wasn't a surprise to get a bite. I had my first bite, played it in, got it right to the edge, and it fell off, which is very, very rare for me. I don't lose a lot of fish, after a minute or so of the fight. If they're on, they're on. But something happened and I lost this fish, which is a bit of a downer. Within an hour, the rod next to it, the middle rod, that was away, and I had I think it was a 32 pounder. But long story short, they were on this area, and in this first trip, I think I did 3 nights in there. I had 5 fish. I had a brace of 30s, good 30s. I had a couple of big 20s. And a smaller one of the younger stockfish coming through. And I thought, I like it here. There was one other angler on the lake. It's a 30-odd acre lake. So, it's 30-odd acres of land. I think the actual water's nearer 20 acres, but it's all points and bays and bits. It's absolutely beautiful there. And I thought, I can be happy here. It wasn't like fishing for April. There wasn't one major target. But because I'd caught my single target so early in the year, it sort of freed me up in my mind for a year of carp fishing. I could fish for carp. I could go to Woolpack if I fancied it for a guest trip. I could go to the Kong Valley. I could fish the big lake. I could just fish for carp, which is rare for me because quite often I've got a target in mind. I want to catch a particular fish. But I'd already done that at the end of April, with April. So I had a year of just being footloose and fancy free, and this looked like the absolutely perfect environment to do it. What can I say? Apart from the loss, which is still horrible, my big lake sessions are starting very well. The mirror in the bag that I'd weighed was 32.7. That one's a common, probably bigger. What the morning. Back at the photo shoot. We have a 32, very hastily weighed 32 pound 7 ounce mirror, which I was convinced was the half lens from the car park. It looks very similar, but it isn't. Obviously, I have checked. Whoa. Whoa. It's a bit crazy though. Not really sure why he's quite so crazy, but look at him. He's an absolute beauty, isn't he? So we're happy with him. Very happy. He's a good one. He's a lovely one. Mirror carp as well, because there's a lot of commons in here. Yeah, a lot of them are commons. The other one, he's a common. There we go. There he is. The light's coming through. It's all gone a bit, but you get the general idea. 30 pound 9 common. Whew. Brace of 30s. Happy days. Woohoo! So as we got into the summer, the water quality was really nice, really quite clear. And like I said earlier, there's ladders around the lake. So rather than just having to climb trees, which I love doing anyway, there's these huge great ladders in various sort of decent spots around the pond for watching fish. And I got to learn the specific trees that gave you the best view for each section of the lake. So, whereas when I started, I was walking around trying to crash through the bushes and look in here and look there. So you soon, learn which trees give you which of the vantage points are the best. This tree will give you this little bit of the bay, and that ladder will give you that section. So I spent a lot of the daytimes up there throughout the summer, when it's not bite time. When you're in full summer, you're expecting bites at night, first light, sometimes in the evening. But that middle of the day period, I use that for looking, and for relocating and what have you. Now, the Neem Valley, I don't know if you know anything about the Neem Valley, you'll know it's quite renowned for commons, the Nene Valley commons. They're a certain strain, if you like. They're a little bit different to a lot of commons. They've got a bit of a silvery hue, short faces, stocky, beautiful looking fish. I mean, normally I'm more of a mirror man, but you know, they are a bit special, these Nene Valley commons. And the big lake at Irchester's got some absolute corkers in there. The star of the show in there, the biggest one in there is probably 46 to 48 pound, which is a very, very big common indeed. In fact, the lake used to have two low 50 pound commons in there. Unfortunately, both died through spawning or whatever, or old age, just before I got my ticket. So it's got like the pedigree for big commons, and there's plenty of other decent commons in the lake, you know, plenty of things to target. And like I say, I'm not single fish targeting at this stage. I'm fishing for the love of carp fishing. But these Nene Valley commons there, every time I get up a tree and have a look, you know, you see a couple of mirrors and a couple of stockies and a bit of a mixture, and then one of these big old grey commons will come through. I'm thinking, I wouldn't mind catching one of them. So I'm sort of building a little bit of a target in my head. But there's plenty of fish in the lake, you know, there's plenty to go at. You're not single fish fishing. So it was exciting throughout the summer. It was really, really interesting, you know, learning more about the stock, learning more about the areas. And I was pinging off the odd fish here and there, you know, from see them feeding under a bush and, you know, might get one and spook them off and then move to another area. And sometimes fishing 2 or 3 different swims in a day or in a 24-hour set, which, you know, I usually go for 3 nights at a time in the summer. So that's quite a lot of moving, but that's what I enjoy doing. You know, I like setting up lightly. If I don't have to use a bivvy or anything in the summer, I won't. I just have a bed chair or just a low chair in the day. Quite often leave the night kit somewhere else in the bushes. You know, I'll fold up a bivvy and a bed chair and all the things I don't need. And you can't fish more than one swim at the same time. You can't have a camp in one swim and stalk. So I'll pack it up from one swim, find a gap in the bushes, chuck it in the bushes. It's all secure, it's all fenced. Leave that there, go off and do me trotting for the day and me looking and a bit of stalking, floater fishing, what have you, and then decide what's the best option for the night. So I did this through a lot of the summer. I was having an absolutely lovely time up there. But then it gets round towards sort of the end of August, beginning of September, and you start to get that little change in the weather, and you start to get some of them lows come in, you know, with the low pressure. And the first big one we had to come in was Storm Flores, I think. Where they get the names from, I have absolutely no idea. But I believe that was Storm Flores, and it was forecast to be quite a big one. The wind it was bringing with it, as most of these pressure systems are at that time of year, was a south-southwesterly, which blows right the way down the lake into the area I mentioned earlier, this plateau area, which I'd done a couple of days in there, but I've been deliberately avoiding for the repetition thing. But it just looked so perfect. You know, you've got hundreds of yards of open water coming down through the gaps and everything, down the lake. And the first big feature that it hits is this plateau. By now, the weed beds, it doesn't flower, but it's up onto the surface, laying flat and knotting. It's a total weed bed. So I got in there the day before this storm, got set up pre-storm. And through the binoculars, I'm looking out the weed and I can see the weed tenting in the day. I'm thinking they're already there. You know, once this wind hits, it's going to whip it up. It's going to charge oxygen into the lake. And when you get a feature like that, I've fished a lot of lakes in the past, where when you get a big southwester or a big wind of any description that you think the fish are going to follow, if it's a gravel pit, it doesn't always mean that they're going to end up on the end of the wind. I remember back in the day when I fished the Island Lake, that was a prime example. The wind would blow down a massive long stretch open water into a bay at the far end, but the fish didn't go there. It looked like they should, but because there was a gravel feature, like this plateau I'm talking about, it creates its own undertow. It's, you know, if the lake shallows up over a feature, a certain amount of water's got to go back the other way, doesn't it? Otherwise you'd end up with a hill of water at one end of the lake, which doesn't happen. You get that undertow effect, and on gravel pits that can happen at various stages along the lake before you get to the ultimate destination of the bottom bank. And I was gambling that would happen here on this plateau. The fish would be in the weed, the wind, the water would come down, would hit the plateau. You'd get some, area of turbulence, a lot of high oxygen levels, a lot of disturbed bottom, and it would sort of filter, the weed would filter out the wind and make it not as appealing further down the lake, because there was still a couple more swims, maybe 100 yards they could go. So I set up in there, got everything ready. First, I was a bit disappointed to start with. The wind got up and it was blowing in there. It was getting stronger and stronger. This is the next morning. I've done one night in there. Haven't had anything. Haven't seen anything showing. It's looking like I might have made the wrong decision. And then 11, 12 o'clock, midday, that sort of time, everything changed. See a fish slide out, stick its head out right over where I was fishing. I've got like a big bed of particles and a lot of tiger nuts I was using, because the tension there can be a bit troublesome, over the side of this plateau. And I see one come up and go back down, and then I see another flat spot, and half an hour later I see another one roll over, and I thought, it's happening. The wind's getting stronger and stronger by now. I've got this big willow tree next to me, and the fronds are all coming out in front, and all the bushes are going over. It's proper picking up. It's probably 40 plus mile an hour gusts by now, and it was forecast to get up to, I think it was 60. It was getting really, really strong. Anyway, by early afternoon, I'm thinking it's going to happen, it's going to happen, and sure enough, bang, one of the rods is away. I've got a great bit of video actually of one of the bites, so the camera running on the rods, and a huge gust of wind comes through and rips the waterproof cover off of my barrow, and it just appears in shot. And as I run out to grab it before it goes in the lake, it's an absolute one-noter, just melts from one of the rods. And that was the start of it. And over the next, it wasn't an extended period, like maybe 24 hours, the wind just howled and howled, it rained a bit, it was like perfect fishing conditions for the summer. And I think I had 5 fish, I believe it was, in that short period, and I did manage to get one of the a decent sized common. It must have been the oddest looking fish in the lake. It's a certain strain. I've seen them in other lakes in the past where it almost looks like their back's broken. So you've got the body of the fish and the tail points straight down. But I've come across that over the years a few times, but it's a very odd creature. I think it was 35, 36 pound, that sort of weight. But a very strange looking one. It wasn't one of the classic Nene Valley commons, but they were out there. But I had a couple of really nice mirrors, and I was just enjoying my fishing. On a lake with not a lot of anglers, hardly anyone really, to be honest. A lake where you can go round, nice clear water, you can see fish from various vantage points, you can move whenever you like, day or night, with not getting in anyone's way. You can bait little areas and go back there and no one's been in them. It wasn't deserted of anglers, but it was very lightly fished in the summer. I'd been told this would happen. Fished in the spring, after spawning, left alone until sort of late autumn. The members on there, I think that fished there for a while, were more interested maybe in catching them at bigger weights, which happens a lot. For me, I didn't know what they were supposed to weigh. I didn't really know what was in there, so I didn't care. I just like catching carp, whatever they weigh. And this was just like the perfect playground for me. All happened there. The barrow cover blew off, nearly went in the lake as I ran for it. The one I just recast. What a fish, eh? Beauty. Absolute beauty. Recognise him? Sure I do. Look, the other side of the half a lin, which is why I thought last time, I'm sure it was him, I thought it was the half lin. Oh, broken lin or whatever they call it. Tail's blowing in the wind. Well, that was a touch in the afternoon, wasn't it? Oh, the rain. 35 pounds 11 ounces. That ain't a bad one. Big old fat common. He is a fatty. No, don't be a asshole, that nearly hurt. Oh, right in the Why would you do that? Oh, look at that for a shot. Come on, the fatty ones ain't usually a problem. Look at him. He's a unit, isn't he? Whew. Hey, what a monster. You are a monster. No offence, but you are. Fought like oh. So it's quite often is the case at that sort of time of year, late summer, that's not quite what you call autumn, but getting that way. When you get one of them big lows come through, big storm conditions, what follows behind is it drags in a lot of warm air and totally different conditions, more summery conditions, if you like, calm, higher pressure, which is what happened on my following trip. Only a few days later, I was back. I was actually booked in to do some filming, so I had a cameraman with me, which is sometimes a little bit of an encumbrance because you've got to, to an extent consider them, not too much mind, but to an extent. And we'd gone round to an area that was a nice big double swim on a point, and I thought that'll be fine. The filming will be nice, we can sit and have a chat in front of the camera and what have you. It's roasting hot. It's mid-30s, dead flat calm, high pressure, crap fishing conditions for most places. But that part of the Nene Valley's got a bit of a reputation for fishing fairly well in high pressure. Anyway, I'm set up there. I think we managed to do the night, and by about 6 o'clock the next morning, I've got proper itchy feet. I'm stomping up and down. I haven't had a bite. And I'm thinking, I've got to do something. I can't just sit here, do this bit of filming. It's going to look better with a fish. Across the other side of the lake, further down, I can see the weed bed where I clumped them the week before on the plateau. And I'm thinking, I don't want to just do that rinse and repeat. But I'm doing a film for somebody else here. I could do with a fish, and I want to catch a fish. And I just sort of had this feeling in my head that they might still be there even without the weather. Anyway, I'm out on a point. I think it's called the second point. There's a point to my right, obviously it's called the first point. From there, you're very close to the back of the weed bed. So I said, I wound the rods in, said to mate, you stay here for a bit, I've just got to go for a little walk. So I've gone round to the first point, just me and a set of bins. I walked out on the point and I put the bins out, then straight away I've just seen the back lift and go down. Just about this much black just came out. Could only be a dorsal, just lifted up and dropped back down. I thought, there's definitely one there. So I've looked a little bit harder and I've seen a bit of weed move and then another little crease, and then one's come out the weed straight towards me, done a big circle, gone round over roughly where I figure the plateau must be, because I'm on the other side of the lake now, gone back in the weed and pugged up again. I thought, I can't resist, I've got to have a go. So I've gone back to my mate, I said, we're moving. And he's like, oh, right, okay. You can see him looking around thinking, I've just put that tripod there, I've got a tripod over there, I've got that set up there, I'm stood here with a microphone for you. I went, no, we're moving. He said, where to? I went, see that swim over there? That's about as far as you could walk from us on the far bank. Yeah, I'll see you around there. All on the barra. Done my classic, 4-minute move. I was round there way before him. Got round there, stood in the swim, and sure enough, I can see signs of fish out there, just creasing along and what have you. Spotted out a couple of bits of tigers, just tigers, out on the top of the plateau, and just sat back and waited for him to come back. Now, he got round about half an hour later. By the time he got there, they were just starting to fizz on the bait. I thought, they're on it. In, let's say, it might have been 35 degrees. It was absolutely roasting. So I flicked a couple of baits out there, sat back and thought, there's probably not a lot of chance in the middle of the day, but you never know. Anyway, mate, he's there now. He's set up his cameras and what have you. I've got all my cameras set up for my own stuff. Bang, it's away. I've hooked one. Here we go. This is it. This is the video saver, the work saver. played this fish, he's filming, he's getting in front of me, he's getting behind me, filming everything. Got it in, it's gone under this big willow to my right, and it would not come up, you know, there was boils coming up, this fish just would not break the surface. Just looks like everything's just about to come to a head, ping, it pulled out. Oh no, I just had it on too long. It was determined, this fish. Sometimes they just won't give up, will they? You know, I hadn't seen it, it was down there, it was just burrowing, and somehow it had managed to work the hook loose and it come off. And I thought that was so close, you know, in those sort of conditions when you're not expecting a bite. And I'd nearly saved the day and I've lost it. I thought, well, at least he's got a bit of footage, a little bit of action. Wasn't expecting anything else to happen. Put the rod back out there and I thought, well, you know, I came close, no cigar. Anyway, the next 3 or 4 hours, the worst bit, the heat of the afternoon, I think I had 3 more bites off the top of the plateau. They were fizzing out there, they were rolling out there. The maddest behaviour for the weather, but one of the fish that I landed, I had a couple of nice mirrors, but one of the fish that I landed, as soon as it came in, as soon as I saw it roll near the net, I thought that's one of them. That is one of those Neem Valley commons, like one of the good ones. Got him in the net. I don't know the fish very well. There's only 3 or 4 fish in there I know. But I know one of the big commons, when I say big, I'm talking 40-pound commons, a big fish, is a fish called two-tone. Anyway, I got this fish on the mat, and straight away I could see it's a proper Neem Valley strain. It's got the shorter face, it's got the sort of big round tail, it's got that thickness across the shoulders to it, and it's got a slight two-tone pattern from like sort of silver to grey on one side. I thought, I don't know about that. That could be the one. Took a quick picture of it, sent it to the governor there, the bailiff, the owner, and he came straight back and yeah, that is the two-tone common. So got the camera set up, weighed him 37.5, I think he was. I say it's very often 40, 41, even 42 pound, but they spawn out quite a lot on there, which is why a lot of the anglers drop off after spawning because they want them at the bigger weights. I don't care. I've got a 37.5 pound Neem Valley original proper common on the bank. I was absolutely over the moon. And obviously the guy doing the video was chuffed as well, because we've gone from no chance to 3, 4 fish or whatever it was on the bank, including this absolute corker. I was absolutely made up. Go, 37 pound Neem Valley common, absolutely beautiful, very, very lively as well. He's been hard work to trick, because obviously the conditions have been brutal. I lost one this morning, didn't please me at all, and then they started fizzing over the spot in that bright sunshine. Quick look at him, because he just wants to go back. There he is. Lovely jubbly. What a way to end what's been a lovely little trip. 2 days and nights on the bank. Got some nice footage, summer special. I've got 37 pound Neem Valley common to it with. Oh, got a bit wet. Just fell over. There we go, 32 pound common. We're kicking right off. Who knows, might get another one for the going. I think as far as this film's going, it's us done. What is going on? Surely there can only be hook baits left out there. foot wrong today. I've already texted her indoors and said, when are you expecting me home, baby? Well, what's going on? Third fish, fourth one hooked. He's a common, about 20 pounds. I'm just going to let him go. I know it's a bit blasé, I'm sorry, but so we're going to unhook this one in the net, show you briefly. Another common, obviously, I don't know if I said that. Whoa, 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 whoa. Oh, we're miles away, but mate. There we go, he's not even a 20 pounder. Not that matters, he's more than welcome. He's carp, and we love catching carp. But we are trying to sort out everything else to get wrapped up and done. Really, I should stay another night, shouldn't I? That would be the sensible thing. I don't think there's anything actually stopping me doing that. Or is that just greedy? The final warning. What will it bring? A frenzy of takes and carp battles? Or a nothingness? Who knows? You never can tell. Look at that beastie. He's a corker. We're liking him a lot. He's a proper one, isn't he? Hey? Him's lovely carp. And well behaved. Got a bit of a scale missing damage thing on the other side near his tail. Probably done it to himself, spawned or something. Yeah. Oh. So funny enough, that session was the last time I saw the fish in numbers on that plateau in that weed bed, which, to be honest, wasn't a bad thing because every time I turned up, that was the first place I was looking now, and I was just thinking, I don't want to be a one swim angler. You know, it's working, but I don't want to just keep doing it and doing it and doing it. And the following trip was forecast, so it had gone from the storm Flores to this unbelievably hot weather, and then it was forecast for another one of these storm Egbert, or so, I don't know what it was, storm somebody or other was coming in afterwards. So that time of year you quite often get these big lows coming through. And I'd arranged a guest session up there for my mate Nick Forward, and he was coming up. Now, when I take a guest to a lake, I want them to catch. You know, I want to catch, obviously, but I want them to catch more than I want myself to catch, because that's the whole idea, isn't it? You know, you want to show them the lake, you want them to catch a fish, you want them to have a lovely time, and go away happy. Now, there's a rule on Irchie with guests that they have to fish in the same swim as you, which is quite a good rule on lakes, especially if they're busy, because, you know, there's nothing worse. You turn up on a small lake, it's only got 8 swims, and someone's got a guest in one of them, and then you've only got 6 swims, and, you know, it takes up room that paying anglers, you know, members are going to want to fish in. So you both fish in the same swim, but with 2 rods each rather than 3 rods. So it works quite well. But I picked an area that I thought was, you know, a bigger swim, almost like 2 swims. It was on a little point, and it had a swim going out each side. We had a good walk around the lake and decided between us where to go, but I thought that's a good starting point. So we've started off in there. I've put Nick in the left-hand side, which I knew was the better side. If I would have fished it on my own, I'd have had all 3 rods in the left-hand side of the swim. I knew some spots out there. I'd got them written down on my phone. I keep a very accurate record of every spot I find in every swim on every lake that I fish. Everything. I've got like a notes section on my phone, and I'll write down, pylon 22.5 wraps or whatever. And I'll also, if it's not that clear cut, I'll take a photo with my phone and draw on there a little red line coming down to the exact tree that it is, and then I'll write the wraps on there and the name of the swim. So I'm quite particular, I'm meticulous really with keeping notes, and I've got nothing for this right hand side because I wouldn't really give you 2p for it. And I put Nick on the left, and I had more than enough spots to put him on the decent spots. He's only got 2 rods, so we got all set up. When me and Nick get together, it's, you know, it's barbecue, it's a cool box full of Guinness, it's the 2 high chairs out there, and we chat, we have a lovely old time, and it makes for a good video as well when you've got someone you can bounce off of like Nick. So we sat out there, we're having a great old time. Nothing's happened in the evening, nothing's happened in the night. In the morning, bang, one of the rods is away. It's one of mine in the right hand side. I'm like, oh no, I wanted Nick to get one, not me. And I've hooked this fish, played in. It's a lovely common, Neem Valley common. It's 32 pounds, absolute belter. And I was over the moon with it, but I was very gutted that I'd much preferred that Nick caught it. He was down for a couple, it might have even been 3 nights, can't remember. He was down for the trip. So bizarrely, I mean, I thought he's not going to have it if I say, oh, you have my side of the swim. You know, he's going to go, really? No, that ain't happening. I thought we should relocate. We should go somewhere else. And we'll try again. So it seemed weird having a fish from a new swim for me, the right-hand side, and then relocating. But I really, really, really wanted Nick to catch. So we went around on the Barra for the day, fished a few little bits and pieces. We dropped in the plateau in the afternoon, which I said I weren't going to do, but we dropped in the plateau. And I put Nick on both the spots. Only 2 rods I catch from there. So I put him on the 2 main spots, and I just put 2 up the edge. And I said to him, when you've caught 2, we'll swap a rod. I'm going to have me, you. Anyway, he had a bite. And he had, it was like one of the smallest commons I've seen in there. It was about 15 pounds, like a little stocky. And I was like, oh, it's really not going to do. Anyway, we're set up in there. He's hoping that the bulk of the fish going to come in. So with the wind charging down there, and it looked so much like it did in the storm Flores. I just thought if it repeats itself, we can have a right result here. Nick can have a couple. He's already had a quick bite with this small one. I thought it could properly kick off, and that'd be perfect. But it didn't happen like that. The fish started showing, and they started showing behind the plateau, and you could see them. Sometimes you could track fish when they're on the move, and one showed, then another, and they were moving round and round beyond the weed where we couldn't get to them, in front of this point on the other bank, in the mouth of this big long bay. And they stopped there and they showed, we must have seen 40 shows in a couple of hours, all in this same area coming out. And I'm just looking at Nick and saying, are we moving yet? Are we moving yet? He said, soon. But bear in mind, he's had a bite. So he's thinking, am I doing the right thing? Am I doing the wrong thing? And then it just got to a stage I said, well, I'm moving and you've got to fish with me. And he's like, okay, yeah, let's go. So we packed up, we've gone right round the other side of the lake, and they were sort of trapped between a point, and there's 2 swims, and they were trapped between the 2. And from one, it was, you could only just get them by wading out and casting around the corner. And from the other, you could only just get them by wading out and casting the other way around the corner. They were in this, they knew where they were safer. So we chose this point swim, and we waded out, and we did what I was intending doing on the other bank. We fished alternate rods. So I gave him first choice. So he's picked a tree to cast to right where they're showing. I've gone next. He's gone next. I've gone next. So we set up in there, and I was just praying for him to catch one. We had 2 bites that evening, 2 tench, both about £8, one each. I'm just thinking, what more do I need to do to get Nick to catch fish, or hope for Nick to catch a fish? Anyway, like I say, we had normal barbecue, few beers, good old chat, gone to bed. They've stopped showing by now, and it's looking like we've missed the boat, and we're sort of bemoaning the fact that we should have gone earlier, should have moved as soon as we see the first couple of fish. First night, one of the sounder boxes has ripped. When I say first night, just getting light. We've had a 1-toner. It's not quite as cut and dried when you've got me, him. Come flying out, and we're like, who's rod? I'm thinking, please be Nick's. And sure enough, it was Nick's rod out on these 2 round the corner, absolutely ripping off. Waders on the rod, he's gone out there. It's very shallow, marsh and weedy in the margin, so he's had to go out quite a long way in the chesties, and he's out there playing the fish. I'm trying to film him, but it's not really quite light enough. It's just getting light. And he's coming in, and I've heard him, oh, it's a big one, it's a big one. He's getting really excited. Eventually, it's gone in the net. I've gone and had a look, and sure enough, it's a perler. It's one of these Neem Valley commons, but it's quite a long one. Absolutely mint fish. It's unbelievable carp. 37.5 pounds, I think it was, like a proper one. He was over the moon with it, and I think I was more pleased than he was, to be honest, because that was the whole idea of bringing Nick up there for a guest, not just to show off my lovely syndicate that I've got a ticket for, but to get him, hopefully, to catch one of these gorgeous old Neem Valley commons. And we didn't have anything else after that. We didn't need anything else after that. It absolutely made the trip. It was the perfect trip. So by now we're getting into the autumn proper, around my favourite time of the year, around the equinox, which is sort of end of September and then into October. And this is what I live for. I love fishing at this time of year. The fish had completely changed their habits. They'd left the area, up near the plateau. They weren't using the bit where Nick caught so much. They were more. I'd not really fished the far end of the lake. So if you picture the lake, it's like almost like a big number 3 formed by the point. So you've got a bay and a point, a bay and a point, a bay and a point. As you come down one side, the other side is more uniform and very, very heavy reeds. So you've got quite a lot of areas, pinch points, where it goes in and then opens out into another bay section, and you get a pinch point with a point one side and the bank the other. And again, and at the far end of the lake, it ends up in what they call the finger bay, which is where one side of it goes off in probably 60 yards, 50 yards across, but 100 yards long, maybe even 80 to 100, long finger bay to the end of the lake. And the other way goes into a shorter, wider bay. So you've got these 2 areas at the far end of the lake. I hadn't really fished. I walked them, I've looked at them, but for some reason I'd avoided them up until this stage. But the more I looked, as it got into autumn, the more often I would see fish at this far end of the lake. Quite a lot further to walk from the car park. To push your barrow. But there's good vantage points when you get up there. You can see a lot, especially in the Finger Bay. You can see them right under your feet. You fish from the far bank and where you cast across to, like I said earlier, very good way of fishing. You can see practically where you're going to be baiting, where you're going to be fishing. And I started to see some of the bigger fish in this Finger Bay. If I saw a group of, say, a dozen fish, 10 of them would be 30 plus. And one day up there, I saw an absolute beast come past. When I say come past me, it was underneath my feet. And it was a big common with a big lump on its head and like big muscle things coming out the back of its gills. Definite 40 plus, real chunky fish. Now, the biggest one in there that I mentioned earlier, which is sort of, big fish, mid upper 40, is a fish called the JCB. Now, I've never seen this fish, so I wasn't sure. And I thought, well, surely that's got to be it. It's a very big fish. It's got to be the one. I managed to get a photo of it in the water. A little bit later on, I went through some photos I found on the WhatsApp group or whatever. And it turns out it wasn't. It was another fish called Rihanna's, I believe. But it was 42 pound, that sort of size, the last capture. And that gave me a sort of point of reference, if you like, because this fish was with this group of fish that I was seeing on a regular basis in this Finger Bay. A reference for what the others were. And I figured that, most of them were not only over 30, but quite considerably over 30. There was a couple of other commons, 35 to 40 pounds. I saw a mirror, a leather that I recognised, which was definitely over 40 pounds. This is a good stamp of fish that I'm seeing using this bay over and again. So I thought I'll swap my attentions to this end of the lake because, I haven't done much up here. It'd be exciting, it's new learning, there's big fish using this area. So over the next couple of 3 sessions, that's where I decided to fish. I headed straight up there. Wasn't without some disasters at that period of my fishing either. I'm renowned for forgetting stuff when I go fishing. Absolutely renowned for. There's always something, because I do my weekly video vlog, so it's almost like I take people with me, the same people, because I'm talking like I am now. I'm talking to a camera. It's like I've got a little room full of people with me, and they're always noticing. I'm looking, where's this? I've forgotten that. I forgot my pan. I forgot my cooker. I forgot whatever. One week I went in this period of time and forgot my rod bag, all my rods, everything, the whole lot, bank sticks, the lot. Luckily, I've got friends dotted about. And one of them managed to lend me a rod bag with everything, rods, reels. I had my alarms, that's all I had. Which it wasn't as bad as the year before at Irchester when I was on the car park. I went home one week and forgot to take all my fishing gear with me. The whole lot. I'd loaded the barrow, I'd pushed it down towards the car park, I'd stopped about 50 yards short of the car park. I thought I'd just go and see matey and see if he's caught anything and say goodbye. Went and had a chat with him. Came back, opened the gates of the car park, walked through, got in the van, 2 more lock gates, went up by Tesco's, just getting onto the dual carriageway, just got to the last roundabout, dabbed the brakes and heard dong, 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 as an empty bucket went along the inside of the back of the transit. And I just thought, how can it do that? How can a bucket go from one end of the transit to the other? Sounded very empty, and I bumped up on the curb, opened the back. Absolutely nothing. Not a thing. I'll show you. Gone back, and the barrow's still sat there, the other side of 3 lock gates, fully loaded. So, I'm quite used to these sort of little disasters. But anyway, where was I? Oh, yeah, far end of the lake. So I was seeing these better fish using this end. Now, one thing I noticed that they'd have their circuits, as carp often do. So you'd see them and they'd go from that group of pads to that bush to there, round the back of the weed, and they'd do that circuit. But the only place that I could always see them, and the only place I couldn't see them, there was one specific bush It was the closest. There's only one swim right up the end, and then you sort of sit in the swim and you're looking right up this big long channel, and it's all overhanging trees to your left hand side, and it's reeds to your right hand side. Let's say it's only 50, 60 yards wide. And the closest, biggest tree to you on the left, when the fish would do their circuit, they'd come through and they'd all head to that tree. And just before they got there, they'd just disappear. You couldn't see them go down and feed, but you just see them get lower, 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 and then you couldn't quite see them. And then a minute later, you'd see them the other side of the tree and go round. And every single time they'd go round, they'd go to this tree and they'd just go out, just out of view. And then a minute or so later, they'd appear, or one of them would appear and two wouldn't, and then the other two would appear. Or one would disappear and two would come back up, one you didn't even know was down there. And I thought, that's the spot. That is, 100%. That's the spot. If you're going to get a bite, it's going to be from that spot. And it was so easy to fish, because from the swim, you could literally cast up against the bush. Once you know the clip, you only need one cast. And I'd get a small PVA nugget, just fold it over and put it on the hook, cast up against the tree, donk, down, it's very deep under the tree. It's not snaggy underneath either, so it's like the perfect environment. You've got quite a steep shelf, dead clean. Because it's steep, there's not really any silt or anything on it. It's like sort of, not gravelly, but hard, little shingly, comes down the slope. You've got the tree for the cover over the top, and you're fishing just on the end of the branches. A PVA nugget just on the branches, donk, as it goes down. Don't even bother putting it on the rests. Just as it goes down, drop it on the reeds. I've already left a bucket of tigers round there. Run round the corner and stand there and just wait for a second, and the PVA nugget pops up right in front of you, and you can just exactly on top of your hook bait. Wander back, put it under a bit, put it in the rests, sorted. I thought that is the method to fishing along that bank. So with all the rods in position, I put, like say, one under that bush, I put one in the next bush further up, and one just out in front of me on the right. But it's one of them, we can't use one rod, can we, as carp anglers? It's unless you're stalking in the edge, we can't use one rod. Why? I don't know, because I knew which rod I was going to get a bite on. I knew the other two probably had next to no chance whatsoever, and I knew it would be that left-hand rod. And sure enough, I mean, I hadn't even set anything up at all. Everything was still on the bank. I just put my low chair up, sat behind the rods, and had a bite straight away on it. And I had a beautiful common of just over 30 pound, I think it was, which, although a really nice fish, wasn't indicative of the average weight of this group of a dozen fish or whatever that I was fishing for. It was probably one of the smallest ones of the lot, which sounds ridiculous at 30 pounds. I mean, 30 pounds is a big fish. But out of this group, it was definitely one of the smaller ones. But it was a gorgeous fish, really, really nice fish. And the rebaiting was just as easy. Nugget again, ploff, run round there, handful of bait, back round. And I'm back fishing with one single cast, no marker, no spodding. Because the fish in there, they are quite wary of all of that. When they were down in the plateau area and they were in that weed, I could get away with spodding. I could get away with spodding quite a lot, because where you've got shelter, where fish have got shelter, they'll drop back into the weed. It doesn't seem to affect them so much. But when you've got open water circuit using fish, you disturb that circuit. You start boshing on top of them, because from ground level, you can't tell when they're there and when they're over there. You're guessing. You get it wrong, couple of casts, marker float, bit of spodding, they're gone. They're not coming back. But this was ideal. It's like, margin stalking on the other bank, one cast every time, just one single cast. It was easy fishing, to be honest. Got it back up there, set everything else up, and just on dark, a couple of beeps. I was making my dinner, I think. Had a couple of beeps, looked round, and the rod's on test curve. It's pulling, man. It's just about to go. Jumped up, hooked into this fish. Different gravy, this one. This one roared. I mean, it stripped line off me, but I'd already checked under all those bushes, and I knew it wasn't a drama. It looks bad, but there's no snags underneath. They're all undercut. And it went all the way along this tree line, almost out of the bay. turned round in the open water and I pumped it back. Then it tried up the right-hand side. Then it tried everything it could in the margins. Got the head torch on. You have to get your chesties on to land them here because it's sort of only yay deep in the edge. You don't want to pull them up on the shelf. So I've struggled into the chesties and I've gone out there and I've seen him come up in the head torch and I've seen a common and its head's like this wide, eyes this far apart, and it's come up and I thought, oh my God, you're a proper one, you are. And he's come up and he's gone in the net. And at first I thought it was the fish that I was mistaking for the JCB, but it didn't have the big lumps, the big sort of muscles around the back of the gill covers there. It was a lot longer, but the tail, I could see, as the tail went over the cord and went in the net, I thought that's why it's been such a brutal fight. The tail on it was absolutely immense. As soon as I saw him on the mat, I thought, yeah, you're another one of them. You're one of the targets. You're one of the 40 plus commons. And sure enough, it wasn't 40 pounds. It was 39 and a half or 39 something. But it was one of the larger commons in the lake. I think it's a fish called the baby immaculate. There used to be one of the ones that died in the 50s, I think, was called the immaculate. I'm not sure. I don't know the actual history of all of them. But anyway, this one was called the baby immaculate, renowned for its fighting ability and its shape and this ridiculously big tail, just under 40 pounds. Absolute stunner. And I was, from this new area for me, in this new style of fishing for them, having seen the better fish, and had 2 30-pound commons on my first evening in there. It was, absolutely perfect. And it didn't end there either. I had a lovely mirror in the sort of early hours of the morning, which didn't go quite as well as it could have done. As I said, you have to put waders on to get into the water, and it's, if you wade in and out, you end up with a very slippery, rounded section at the front of the swim, always wet mud. You get into cast, you get in to do your rods. My front bank stick was a long bank stick, was out in the lake, so it was very, very treacherous, this close bit. Anyway, I had this fish in the night, and I've gone flying out there. I think I'd got thigh waders on at this time because I could get in and out of them quicker. So I've got my thigh waders and I've folded them down and folded them back up. So they're only short, but they're up and down like that. And I've got them next to the bed. Anyway, same rod again, obviously. I said I only really needed one rod. That one's ripped off. I've jumped up. I'm in the thigh waders. I've pulled one up, pulled the next one up, taken a step forward and just lost both feet, gone straight up in the air. I've slid down on my bum, donk over, under the rods, straight into the lake. I am absolutely drenched. The waders are full of water. I'm soaked. And it's quite, this is autumn now. The water's not warm at all. It's quite cold. I've managed to grab the rod, so I'm laying on my back in the water with the rod above me, and I'd suddenly got cramp in my left leg, like, not like old man cramp, like rugby player cramp, like a man's cramp. When it pulls your leg right up and folds your foot up. It's agony, absolute agony. I'm laying on my back and playing this fish over my head. I've got waders full of water, I'm soaking wet, and I cannot get out of the lake. I was in trouble a little bit, to be honest. I could not straighten my leg. I had to put my fingers in the mud behind me and drag myself back out of the bank and sort of push my knee down to crack my leg straight to sort of straighten the muscle. I was cold. I was wet. I was covered in shit. But I landed it, and it was a third fish from this bay, all on my first night. Beautiful mirror. It opened a whole new sort of world for me of this other end of the lake that I don't know why I hadn't fished it all spring and summer, why I just left it alone. I have no idea. But suddenly there was like a new dimension, if you like, to this absolutely amazing, beautiful lake. I've got another, it's like having another lake stitched on the end. It opened a whole world of opportunities. And this is the rod across to the other bush where 2 have jumped, where I put the nugget on and ran round and quickly baited up as the nugget popped up, and there we go, nice humpy headed 30 pound, nearly in that, £30 common. Whew. That's a bit of a touch, I know it's a bit dark, but it is evening. Yeah, we're happy with that one. I think we're good. Right, you ready for this? £39 5 ounces of common carp. Get through a lot of my tea water. I need a spare bucket for lake water. 39.5. Wow! Look at him, people. He is a bona fide monster. Oh! Don't go floppy, Mr. Floppy on me. We've got volume on there, yeah. Good. Quite in that one. Whew. Hey? I'll come closer for the camera one. I ain't got that quite set up right. Well, it's 1:15. We're a bit wet. We had a bit of a disaster. There we go. 27.5. That's about all you're going to get. And now I've got to wind in the walk all the way back to the motor at the very furthest end of the lake and get myself sorted before I freeze to death, because it is, as you can see, quite nippy out when you've been for a swim. So although I had really high hopes for that area throughout the autumn, it didn't sort of pan out quite as well as I thought it would. I was seeing the fish a lot down there. I was still seeing them sort of all over that section, but location is key, obviously, as anyone will tell you, but it's not always enough. If they're not putting stuff in their mouths, you can't force them. You can't force them to feed, no matter what you do, what your baiting strategy. If they're not eating, you can't catch them, basically. So I had a little bit of a frustrating time up that end over the next couple of weeks, but I did have, it probably sort of marked the end of that autumn period on Irchie for me before I moved on. I had a very, very strange session. So I said it's made of bays. You've got the first bay, the second bay, the third bay. In the second bay, it's an area that doesn't get fished a lot, hardly gets fished at all, to be honest. And this is, like I say, later in the year, October time. There's only 2 swims in the second bay, and neither of them were even fishable. One had filled in with reeds, totally. In fact, a couple of weeks before I cleared it out, I got in there and removed a load of reeds and made it fishable. I only did a night in it. I didn't catch, but it hadn't been fished really up until that time. The other one is right down in the bottom of the bay, which is very, very shallow, as in, a couple of foot in the edge, slowly going out, 3 foot, 4 foot, not a lot of depth there at all. Anyway, I was doing a wander around. I'd had a very mobile session up that top end, up my new sort of autumnal end. I'd fished most of the swims. There's 4 or 5 swims up there, and I'd moved between them all, and I'd ended up in a bit of a muddle, actually. I'd got gear stashed in the bushes over there. I'd got some stuff on a barra there. My rods was over there. I was trying to correlate it all at the time to end up somewhere. Didn't have a lot of the day left, and I wasn't really sure what I was going to do. But I needed to go to the shops to get some more supplies. So anyway, I walked round the long way round the lake, back towards the van. And for some reason, I just thought, I'll just have a look in that second bay. I think the sun was coming in there or something. It was quite chilly. There was a little bit of a, what would that have been, a westerly blowing into there. There's a skinny little tiny tree you can just about get up. And I thought, I'll climb up there. Just had this feeling that it was worth a look in there. Anyway, I shinned up this little tree. You can only get up about 10 foot, tiny little thing. Lent like that, looking over the top of the reeds. Thought, oh God, there's a carp there, right in the edge, in 18 inches of water. There was this fish, and then there was another one behind it. And I've looked, and the more I looked, the more I saw. And I thought, there's a lot of them here. There's like 15, 20 fish in 2 packs, all going along. And they were swimming along, and they were looking up rather than down, if you know what I mean. The tails were lower than their heads. They looked like they'd take a floater. I thought, they're not going to be taking a floater, surely, at this time of year. But the more I looked, the more I thought, I don't know. The van's a couple of 100 yards away. So I've gone back to the van, and I've got my floaters out. I'd only put my floater gear back in, I think it was that week, because the previous week, in a bit of high pressure, I'd also seen some fish right up the other end, looking a bit that way. So anyway, I got floater gear in the motor, so I went back up there, got my bucket of floaters, come down. I thought, this is ridiculous, but I'm going to do it. So I put I said the breeze is coming in, so I put a couple of 3 pouches out further on the right, and a couple of 3 pouches out further on the left. Climb back up. By the time I'm up the tree, there must have been 6 fish on it. They were nailing it. They were gurgling. They were actually slurping to get them down there. And I thought, it's just crazy. This is like prime floater fishing at totally the wrong time of the year, completely the wrong time of the year. I thought, it's got to be done, hasn't it? And like I said earlier, you can't have gear. I couldn't stalk for these and have gear in another swim, which I did have at this stage, right up the other end of the lake. So I had to go back up, get that gear out of that swim, stash that in there. Both the landing nets were up there. The floater rod was still in the van. There was a lot of working out to do. So I was running up that way, grabbing this, running back that way, run back to the van, get the floater rod. Needed to film it as well, because like I say, I've got the video channel, which is how I make my living. So you can't let an opportunity like that go past without filming it, an off-season floater fish. So I set up a tripod, set up my little camera, got my chest waders on, because you can't even get to the water. It's all reeds and like sort of shallow, muddy swampiness. Waded through that, put some more floaters out, and they came up. It just seems stupid, put the controller. I always use a big controller, and if I'm fishing 2 rod lengths out, I'll cast 50 yards out, so the splash is right out there, and then slowly tweak it back, which I'd done and got it into position. As soon as it got amongst the fish, one came straight up, made a beeline for it, came up and nailed the controller, as they do, and I thought, oh God, that will spook him, but no, he backed off, and I had a couple of casts to get it perfect. And then one come up from behind it, and you can just tell when you get the perfect angle, when the fish is coming from behind, then it's the floater, then it's your hook link, controller, and your rod, and it's all lines up, and they're coming in from the right angle. There's nothing for them to see, even if the hook link's sagging under the surface. They're coming in from behind the bait. And he came in, and his nose come up, and his mouth opened. I thought, here we go, bang, and he nailed it. I've just hooked into it, and it's erupted. Shallow water, cool water, so they're full of beans. Incredible fight, on the floater gear. I didn't think the floater gear was coming out again for 6 months, and I've hooked one in October on a floater. Played it, and I could tell it was a good fish as well. And sure enough, come up, got him in the net. Another one of the typical sort of Nene Valley commons. I think he was 1 ounce under 34 pounds. Just like that, out of the blue. Just shows that, not giving up on anything. Sometimes, not very often, mind, but occasionally can pay you a dividend, and you get a lucky extra fish. And as it happens, I ended up setting up in that swim and fishing on the bottom, which I thought would be a complete waste of time at night, because I sort of had it in my head that they'd just come there on the freak chance in the sun, but it wasn't, because I caught a 34-pound mirror on the bottom in the middle of the night, a fish known as Bubbles. I'd had it a couple of times, actually. It was a repeat for me. And a small common before I packed up and left. So it was like a big turnaround. Just from that one chance climb up the tree, just had a little feeling as I walked past. It's not on my circuit of climbing trees normally, but just one of them things, something said, lady, have a look in here. And it paid off. But as it happens, that was sort of, after that, the lake became very, very tricky. I was still seeing fish. Like I say, the location I could still just about get the hang of, but it's got no reputation whatsoever for doing bites in the winter. Everybody says that whole part of the complex, that part of the valley even, drops off come by November. It's practically all over. And I wouldn't argue with that, to be honest. Oh, right, I'm a bit out of breath. I moved all my gear in and then went to the motor to get my beer. Looked in the second bay. I see a load of them miles away. They were on the top in the ripple. So I went back, got some floaters, fired them out. They smashed them. October the 5th. They're going mental on the top. So we can have a go. Absolute beast of a carp. Oh, look at them. They are smashing the out of this. Absolutely smashing them in October. He took it. Yes! You can see right down his throat, the fucker. She's in. Oh, what a fucking touch. I don't know what you can see from back there, people. What I can see is a fucking lovely big common. 1 ounce, under 34 pounds off the top in October. And of course it'll be mad because they all are in here. Look at that. That is a touch. I am so chuffed with myself. I bothered to look, find, cherche le carpe grande, and catch a 34 pound common on a fucking floater. Ain't bad for tea, is it? Hey, I only went back for the beer. Oh, I think I might drink it now. Happy days. Oh, nice. Oh, thank you very much, mate. What a touch. So let's say that pretty much ended. But I did do a few more trips after because I'm very stubborn and I refused to believe that I couldn't catch them throughout November. I thought, there's no one else there. And if no one else even knows that there's fish coming out, I always have these little dreams at that time of year in my head, get something going, get in there, feed them, keep them going. And it doesn't work. If a lake doesn't fish in the winter, it doesn't fish in the winter. And the lakes that fish the worst in the winter are always the ones with no anglers on them. You look at all the productive winter lakes, they're the busy lakes, they're the day ticket lakes, they're the, book them up and pay for the whole lake and they're booked every week throughout, heavily stocked. You need a certain mix to make winter fishing work. And big gravel pits with a low, medium, whatever stock, not very many anglers, syndicate waters, they're not the ones for the winter. They're really not. So I came away from that and it's now, let's say Christmas time now. I'm dotting about, trying to get a bite from wherever I can. I've got a few little plans for the new year, but really I'm looking forward to the spring. In the spring, I'm going to get back up to the big lake. I haven't fished it in the spring. The fish will be at big weights. They'll be very active coming out of the winter. It'll be a different style of fishing. It'll probably be fishing with singles, bright ones chasing them about. So I'm looking forward to that. And come the summer, sort of July, I'm starting on quite a special water. Big water, a lot of big fish. And it's got a very, very good winter reputation. So next winter, I won't be scratching about. I know exactly where I'll be. But for now, that's my little roundup of the year. Thank you for watching. Hope you have a really nice Christmas. And I'll see you all again, I don't know, sometime next year. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you all later. Ta-ra.